So Nintendo is about to release their next home console, the Nintendo Switch 2, and me being the partially raised by Smash Brothers baby that I am, just want to know what their plans for a new Smash Bros title on the system is. I think we're still a good while away from any news on Smash Bros 6, but I thought now would be a good time to think of some stuff I'd like to see in said game. I already made a video a while back going over a potential Smash 6 on the Switch 2, but that was more so focused on what form the game could take, if it'll be a deluxe version of Ultimate, and a couple things I'm just hoping to see. Not so much what I'm predicting to happen. I didn't even really talk about any new characters all that much. This time though, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'll be going over my personal predictions for the next Smash game, which is different from my hopes. Why am I talking like that's some kind of big revelation? Anyways, because I think just listing off a bunch of predictions back to back and calling it a day would be boring, I found a fun way to spice it up a bit, namely by putting said predictions on a 5x5 bingo card, and then once we've actually gotten news on Smash 6, I can have it open on the site during reaction live streams and videos on new Smash Bros Directs and such. That sounds like fun. And because I don't see much of a point in a bingo card if there aren't any stakes, how about this? For each bingo we get, aka a full line of correct predictions, I'll make whatever the top comment on this video suggests as a full YouTube video. And then for each following bingo we get, I'll do the second top comment idea, and then the third for the third bingo, and so on. This means that we could potentially be sitting on 12 different video ideas to come from this video's comment section. Just keep it within reason though. Don't ask me to make a 12-hour documentary on the Roman Empire, because I probably won't be doing that. Just keep it Nintendo related and something you'd actually be down to see, you know? But be creative, don't ask me something that I'm probably gonna make anyways. Alright, with all the introductions out the way, let's get right into it. Starting with something I actually talked about a while ago, a new art style. Smash has always kinda built on what worked before. They tend to reuse a lot of models while updating them a tiny bit, and then changing the lighting engine and whatnot. This time though, I'm fully expecting them to completely change how the game looks. I again don't have a specific art style in mind that I'd want or that I'm expecting, but it being very different from what we currently have is my prediction. Someone actually suggested a while back to me that they could look something like those iconic Mario Strikers renders with the rough outlines. That'd be cool. And hey, speaking of stuff looking different, you want a quick free space? Boom! It's gonna have the new Donkey Kong design. The DK we currently know and love is already being taken out back by Nintendo. We got 2 upcoming games releasing after this video with his new design, and they're even replacing a lot of branding stuff that had DK's current design with his new one, such as the artwork for the Nintendo Music app and the profile icons on the Switch itself. Like, come on man, that's a bit much. At first I wasn't really a fan of this new design, but it is honestly starting to grow on me. I think it's just the fact that video game wise, Mario Kart World was the first time we saw it, and there I just think the black around his eyes is way too big. I still don't really think he looks great in that game specifically. In all the new artwork we're seeing, he looks fine, and I actually think he looks really good in Donkey Kong Bonanza. So if to make him look more like he does in that game, I'll be totally fine with it. Just don't give him pants. As an alternate costume, sure, but please don't start giving Donkey Kong pants, otherwise I'm starting a hashtag free the dong movement. But yeah, DK getting his new look in the next Smash game seems like a clean 90% guarantee. And speaking of character redesigns, Link and Ganondorf. I think how they look in Tears of the Kingdom will be used for Smash 6, not necessarily as their new default looks, and I'm not saying I think their movesets will be overhauled to be based on Tears, but maybe as an alternate selectable costume, these looks could be available. This is a really simple one. If either Link, Ganondorf, or both have their Tears of the Kingdom looks playable, I'll count this entry. You know, assuming Ganondorf even comes back in the first place. Which brings me to my first really big prediction. Smash 6 will not feature every character currently playable in Smash. Ultimate's massive claim to fame when it was fully revealed was that every single character that's ever been playable would be returning. This time, however, I don't think they'll be doing that. The whole everyone is here thing was Ultimate's main marketing gimmick, which was undoubtedly very successful, but I don't see it hitting as hard the second time. And I think they'll do something new to make this game stand out more from Ultimate, which I'll cover later, but for now I'm locking this prediction in. Oh, and by the way, I'm talking about the launch roster specifically. If Smash 6 releases with only 8 characters and everyone else ends up coming back post-launch as DLC, I'll still count it. Speaking of characters, I'm sure what you want me to talk about is which new ones I'm predicting this time around. And don't worry, I got you. I have 5 characters in mind that I think will make it, and I'll be placing them in these 5 slots, so that if by some miracle I get all of them right, that'll be an automatic bingo. I'll place them from most to least likely from top to bottom. So let's start with who I think will absolutely make it onto the roster.
Where's that fourth Chaos Emerald?
Shadow the Hedgehog. The Sonic series is an absolute staple of the gaming industry, but for a couple years it was kinda just crapping the bed non-stop and absolutely ruining its reputation. But in the last couple years, it's really been going strong again and picking itself back up, mostly thanks to the insane success of the movies. In fact, I'd argue that the series is currently doing the best it ever has in the time that Sonic has been in Smash, aka since 2008 with Brawl. And again, a really big reason for this are the movies, with the latest one putting some really big focus on Shadow. Paramount even announced a while back that they're planning to make some spin-off movies, which to me undoubtedly means one where Shadow is the main character, since he is ridiculously popular. Sega themselves have even really been pushing Shadow lately, with him getting his own game, kinda, and them naming 2024 as the year of Shadow with a big campaign. Obviously that's all since passed, but even so I think it put enough of a spotlight on Shadow to still make him more than relevant enough to join Smash's roster by the time we get the next game. Not to mention it really is about time we get a second Sonic rep. As for the other 4 newcomers I'm expecting, I don't want to cover them all back to back, so just keep watching and you'll hear about them all. For now, I want to go over something I've been complaining about at length on my channel: remixes. More specifically, Mega Man remixes. I know I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but I still think it's a bit dumb how Smash Ultimate made a whopping 17 new Mega Man remixes, on top of the 6 Smash 4 already made, meaning we have a total of 23 right now, while other series get completely left in the dust when it comes to getting new remixes. While I obviously don't like this, I also think it would be really funny if Mega Man once again gets way too many remixes. So I'm predicting that we get at least 8 more of them in the next Smash game. Who knows, maybe Zero will become playable and he'll come with 24 Mega Man X-based remixes. And speaking of remixes, one of the series that's been done dirty as hell in this aspect is the Sonic series. Brawl famously only made one new Sonic remix, one of Angel Island Zone, that's honestly kinda mid. And then both Smash 4 and Ultimate made 0 new ones, meaning we still only have the one from Brawl all these years later, despite Sonic music being among the most celebrated video game series ever when it comes to its music. So I'm also predicting that Sonic gets at least 1 new remix this time around. I get that this might be kinda cheating considering I'm also predicting the series to get a whole new character, who would most likely come with some new remixes anyways, but like, come on, how funny would it be if they do add Shadow and they still don't make a new Sonic remix? So I'm locking it in. Sonic is getting a new remix and I will be happy, especially if it's from Sonic R. Speaking of characters, let's go over my second newcomer prediction, who's also the second most likely in my opinion, namely a new Xenoblade Chronicles character. The series has been getting really popular in the last couple of years, and to me, it feels like it's become one of those series that's just destined to get a new character in each Smash game going forwards, like Pokemon and Fire Emblem. Yeah. I've been writing down all my predictions for this video over the span of the last year or two, so originally I was locking in Noah from Xenoblade 3, but since then we've gotten the super random remaster of Xenoblade Chronicles X, and we'll probably get a whole new Xenoblade game by the time Smash 6 happens. So now I'm just locking in anyone from Xenoblade, not a specific character. Wow, we've really been covering the top of this bingo card, huh? Let's move on to the bottom rows for a bit with another big one. I think this will be the first Smash game to not be directed by Masahiro Sakurai. This one is purely speculation, and I don't have a lot to base this prediction on. I just kind of feel it in my bones. Since the current latest Smash game we have is the quote-unquote Ultimate one, the series is really ready for something new and fresh. And I think a great way to achieve that could be to have someone else leading the development team with a new vision. Now, I'm not saying Sakurai won't be involved at all. I straight up don't think he'd want that to happen. Instead, I think he'll take on sort of a consulting role. Like, whoever the new director will be can think of an idea for this new game, and then consult with Sakurai if he thinks it's a good idea, and what could potentially be tweaked about it before they fully implement it. While I personally love a lot of Sakurai's design philosophy when it comes to Smash, I'm also ready for something completely new, and I think I'm not the only one who thinks that, so I'm locking this one in. Speaking of Sakurai, by the way, as we know, he's currently working on Kirby Air Riders as his next big project, which is really exciting, and I think something they'll do for fun, or something he'd want to do, is represented in the next Smash game in some way. and I think the most likely thing would be a new stage based on the game. I can't make any specific predictions since we basically know nothing about the game yet, but a stage based on a racing game, which of course will have courses to race on, seems like a no-brainer, especially if said racing game is being made by the founding father of Smash Bros. Speaking of upcoming games, Rhythm Heaven Groove! Yeah! Dude, I am so excited for this game. I love this series, and I think it's going to get some big representation in the next Smash game. What kind of representation? I don't know. It could really be anything. A stage, maybe some remixes, maybe even a character. That'd be crazy. But what I feel like is most likely would be an assist trophy. I don't know how to explain this, but Rhythm Heaven to me feels born to have an assist trophy, and I'm honestly kinda shocked it hasn't happened yet. Maybe something like the interviewer and wrestler from ringside stand on the stage, and occasionally the interviewer goes, "Wow, you go big guy," and then the wrestler does the 1-2 hoo-ha combo with his arm, which has a hitbox. That would make it an assist trophy where you have to listen for audio cues to know when he'll strike, which, you know, seems really fitting for a rhythm game. Basically, I'm just predicting anything big from Rhythm Heaven to make it in. More specifically, anything that requires a good amount of effort to be made. And speaking of assist trophies, here's a prediction that I think is just fun to include. I think a character that's currently represented via either an assist trophy or Mii costume will become fully playable. This is always so funny to me. Little Mac becoming playable after having an assist trophy in Brawl, King K. Rool becoming playable after having a Mii costume in Smash 4, and so on. I always love seeing things like that, and I'm predicting it's happening again. Really random, but whatever, it's fun. Wow, that's kind of a whole character I just predicted, kinda. Let's do another one, but a bit more specific, kinda. With my third most expected newcomer, anyone from the quote-unquote Souls series. By which I don't specifically mean anyone from the Dark Souls trilogy, but any Souls game by From Software. This to me feels like one of the biggest series in gaming that still doesn't have a Smash character, while also being super likely, right alongside something like Monster Hunter, which actually does already have some sizable Smash representation already. The fans have lovingly come to refer to these games as the Soulsborne series, which includes Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, Demon's Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and Elden Ring. And I guess also the recently released Elden Ring Night Rain, and maybe also the Duskbloods, which, by the way, is going to be a Nintendo exclusive. That is genuinely unbelievable, and also a strong reason why I think this is happening. Dark Souls is probably the face of this series, and in those games there's no real main character. Same thing in Elden Ring, by the way, which is by far the most successful of these games. You always just play as a custom silent character, so they'd probably do something similar to Villager, where the character just represents the idea of a character rather than someone specific. I feel like considering the immense success of Elden Ring, and it also coming to the Switch 2, and FromSoft seemingly wanting to keep building the brand, I think a character based on that game called The Tarnished is pretty likely. But just like with Xenoblade, I'm not predicting anyone specific, mostly because this time I kind of can't. Alright, that's two pretty big predictions in a row, so let's get to some smaller ones again. Another game that's coming to the Switch 2 is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Yeah, Nintendo Switch 2 edition. Yeah, my segue still works. Anyways, in this game, Samus gets psychic abilities, with which she can open doors. Wow. And also some other psychic stuff, who cares. Just know that she gets psychic powers. I'm not predicting Samus's entire moveset is going to be changed to be more psychic oriented, and Smash famously doesn't really like changing its legacy characters a whole lot, much to my annoyance, but something I am predicting is that she will get a psychic move. It can be literally anything, like she could just get a new grab where she does basically the same thing as Mewtwo, where she'll hold you in place with her mind, and I'll still count it. This is a pretty vague prediction, I know, but Samus gets a psychic move is what I'm going with. Lock it in. Something really cool about Metroid Prime 4, by the way, is that you'll be able to use the Joy-Con 2's new mouse feature to aim, which is awesome. And you want to know another game that's going to have mouse compatibility? Smash Bros. 6. Probably. That, or another new gimmick of the Switch 2 that's a lot less exciting, namely the camera compatibility. Basically, what I'm predicting is that we're going to get some dumb new gimmicky mode using either mouse controls or the camera. Like maybe a mode where someone can click on a Smash character to do damage in a free-for-all. That'd be really funny. Or for the camera, a feature where you can have your face appear in the battle UI. Part of the reason I'm predicting this is because A, it'd be really funny, and B, Smash Ultimate had that dumb VR mode with the Nintendo Labo headset, which nobody really cared about at all and was only included to showcase the VR capabilities of the Switch. which they might do again with one of these new Switch 2 features. The most realistic thing for the mouse would probably be being able to use it to navigate the menus. Like you can just select options with it, the same way you'll be able to do on the Switch 2's home menu itself. I would say that's a bit too easy of a prediction, but then again, both Smash 4 and Ultimate don't even allow you to use their system's touchscreens to go through the menu, so I don't know, maybe it's not as easy of a call as I'm thinking it is. Also, quick side note, since the Switch 2 won't support the Labo VR headset, do you think they'd update Smash Ultimate so that if it's running on a Switch 2, it removes that mode, or makes a warning pop up saying that it doesn't work on the system? I don't know, it's just something I've been thinking about, and it feels like something Sakurai would care about. Anyways, getting back to predictions, let's go over a big one again, that I've also talked about already in the past. The idea of the next Smash game being a reboot. This has been a pretty hot topic in the Smash community, and like I said before, I personally just don't think it's happening. The main formula of Smash being in a 2D plane with platforms, and landing hits to build damage, which makes you get launched further until you leave the screen, is just too iconic. And it's what makes Smash Brothers, you know, Smash Brothers. And I really don't see them changing this all too much, if at all. Another reason for this debate is that people really want a lot of characters to be overhauled moveset-wise, which isn't the same thing as being a reboot. Though I would totally be down for that, and it also wouldn't surprise me, though I'm not predicting that for this video. Basically what I'm saying is the core Smash design will probably not change, and that's really for the better in my opinion. So okay, I've said so far that this game won't have every Smash character, and that it won't be a reboot. So what would make people want to buy this game over Ultimate, which would have similar gameplay and way more characters? Well, here comes my single biggest prediction of the entire video, the thing that will make this game stand out. Namely, a massive new Battle Royale mode. I know, Battle Royale modes are kinda starting to become played out, but you can't ignore the undeniable success they've had, and a Battle Royale Smash mode just sounds like a ton of fun. Basically what I have in mind is a mode where a ton of players get dropped on a gigantic stage, something like the Smash Run mode from Smash 3DS, but even bigger. And how it'll work is that you run around, maybe collect some power-ups here or there, and when you run into another player, and maybe when you land a hit, the camera would zoom out a bit, and the edges of the screen would then become the blast zones. At this point you start fighting each other, obviously trying to launch your opponent into the newly formed blast zones to KO them, and whoever wins gets to go back to exploring the map, looking for more loot and other players to beat, until of course one player remains, being crowned the winner. This would mean a lot of the blast zones would be walk-offs, which, as we all know, makes for some truly terrible stage design. So personally I'm really hoping they'd instead be like the walls from the King of Fighters Stadium stage, where you have to be knocked into them with enough force to break them, which would also make getting a KO in this mode feel 10 times more impactful. If you're another player running into two players already engaged in combat, you could join them and make it a free-for-all. That'd be fun, though they'd have to find a way to make it so every match just doesn't end up being contained to one area. Maybe they could limit it to 4 players per scuffle, or you could be warped away to somewhere else after getting a KO. I don't know, the designers can solve that problem. On paper, this sounds like an incredibly fun mode, and I could seriously talk about all the ideas they have for it for a lot longer, so I'll stop myself here. Though maybe I'll tackle this again in a whole video someday, so be sure to subscribe and let me know if you'd be down to see that. For now, just know that I'm predicting that a Battle Royale mode will happen. Not necessarily the same as how I described it, but however they do it, I think it could be a ton of fun if fully thought out, and I'm personally really hoping for it. Technically, a Battle Royale mode could be with any amount of players that's more than 2, so let's say I'm hoping for at least 30 per match, though I'm not making that part of my prediction. As for something else that could make Smash 6 stand out from Ultimate, I'm also predicting that this game will introduce a brand new universal mechanic. It could really be anything. I've heard some people discuss the idea of being able to select a second character that you could call in for an assist attack, like what a lot of tag fighting games have. That could be cool. Building on that idea, what I'd love to see is that you could select 2 or maybe even 3 characters and then swap them out mid-match, kinda making everyone function like Pokemon Trainer, which could also work really well in a Battle Royale mode. Like, imagine if you start with one character, but you can collect 1 or 2 more on the map somewhere, and then you can swap to them later whenever you want. I'm not predicting specifically this to be implemented, but just any new universal mechanic in general to shake up the gameplay. It's kinda broad, but I feel like you get what I mean. Alright, it's been a while since we've discussed a potential newcomer. Like I said, I'm placing these 5 from most to least likely, so we're getting to the ones I'm a bit more unsure of now, namely a full-on indie game character. Now I know what you might be thinking, PJiggles, Steve is already an indie game character, And I guess you're right, but like I said in my previous video, Steve is a bit of a weird case, with Minecraft being born as an indie game, but then getting bought out and getting co-developed by a non-indie studio, which would make Steve, Zombie, and Enderman an indie game character, but not Alex. Look, it's confusing, but what I'm getting at here is that I'm expecting a character that's just full on, with no strings attached, an indie game character. I have no one specific in mind again, sorry if these character predictions are getting a bit too vague, but I feel like the most likely one would be a Deltarune rep, since Smash 6 is absolutely happening before all chapters of that game have been released, and it would be some great promotion for that game, which would be in Nintendo's interest since the Switch version of that game is very popular, especially now that we know it's getting some exclusive content, considering there's a specific shot that's only in the Nintendo version of the chapters 3 and 4 trailer. So basically, any indie rep is what I'm predicting, though again, a bit less likely now that we're getting further down the list of potential newcomers. You know what's a place indie games have already been represented before? Trophies and spirits, which, guess what? I'm predicting both won't come back in the next game. Trophies are already kind of a given to not come back, considering they removed those in Ultimate, for which we have a reason, namely that they were taking up too much development time. So they introduced spirits, which obviously are a lot easier to make. And the reason I'm predicting that these won't come back is because almost nobody likes them. And also, spirits are very heavily tied to the World of Light mode, which I actually do kinda like, but I don't think they'd bring it back, which would mean spirits also wouldn't have much of a reason to exist. Instead, I think they'll come up with some new trophy/spirits-like feature. I'm not predicting anything specific, but I think they could do something interesting if they heavily expand on the old Masterpieces mode. Maybe they could have tiny specific segments of tons of games playable in some way, like for platformers a specific stage, and for adventure games and RPGs a specific boss fight or something. Or if that's too demanding for whatever reason, they could just have little clips of important moments from the games viewable, all of course with descriptions on the side, letting you know what those games and moments are all about. This could potentially be a great way of getting people interested in games they'd otherwise never pay any attention to, which is something I feel Spirits tried to do, but failed miserably at. In any case, what I'm specifically predicting here is that neither trophies nor spirits will be in the next game. It could be replaced by something or even nothing at all, and I'll still count it. Speaking of removing, or I guess changing, remember how they decided to do a soft overhaul of Final Smashes in Ultimate by making most of them just quick big attacks that you just throw out, hit someone with, and then that's that? Yeah, this kinda blows in my opinion. I think Final Smashes are really boring in Ultimate, so I'm predicting that they're gonna overhaul them again in some way. Maybe they'll backpedal and bring back interesting ones like Transformation Final Smashes, or maybe they'll introduce a whole new meter mechanic like traditional fighting games, which they'll now tie the Final Smashes to. I don't know. Whatever the case, I think they're gonna change how Final Smashes work again. This is another kind of vague prediction, so we'll just have to wait and see what they'll do with them once the time comes, and decide then if it'll be enough to count as an overhaul, small or big. Wow, we're really starting to fill out this bingo, huh? We only got 4 left, which I all think are pretty big ones. First of all, Ultimate didn't really have a lot of fully new characters at launch, and got most of them through post-game DLC, which I think they'll do again. What I'm actually predicting here is that the game at launch won't have a lot of newcomers. Specifically, I'm guessing less than 8, and then more than that will be added as DLC later. What I think would be cool is if they do multiple fighters passes with mixes of both new and returning characters, but the returning characters are fully overhauled. I'd happily pay for Ganondorf as a DLC character if it meant completely changing his moveset. Speaking of paying money, by the way, let's put in another extremely easy prediction. This game will cost $80, without question. Mario Kart World is looking amazing so far, but something pretty much everyone despises about it is its price, namely $80, when Nintendo was just starting to do $70 games. Later, they said that they're doing variable pricing for the Switch too, where game prices will be more varied across the board, depending on how much time and effort went into the games, I guess. Smash Brothers is a juggernaut of a franchise, debatably more so than Mario Kart, at least in terms of development. So I think this game will absolutely be one of those big ones that'll just cost 80 smackaroos. I'm obviously not saying I want this to happen, let's make that perfectly clear, but I am fully expecting it nonetheless. Now, speaking of the game's release, here's a big one. When do I think we're actually getting this game? I've heard some people say that we might hear something about it this year, maybe even a full release, but to me that sounds like some insane copium. Like, no, we're absolutely not getting Smash 6 in 2025. 2026 doesn't even seem likely to me. At the same time, a lot of people are saying it's going to be a long while until we get it. Some even saying 2030, but that feels a little too extreme for me. Obviously, we don't have a lot to base this on, but if I had to pick a specific year, then 2028 seems most likely to me. I could see 2027 happening too. In fact, I literally had this prediction as either 2027 or 2028 until I decided to change it right now while writing my script, because predicting a 2-year window is kind of easy. So I'm locking in 2028, purely not based on much of anything at all. If Sakurai is still going to be heavily involved, and if it's his next project after Kirby Air Riders, then I think 2028 would line up pretty well, especially if he'd start on it after Kirby is done, and also if they do decide to scale Smash 6 down from Ultimate a lot. But even then, 2029 wouldn't seem too far-fetched either. So that just leaves us with one last prediction, and if you've been paying attention, you'll know it's another character prediction. And not only that, but the one I think is least likely to happen. In fact, I'm not entirely sure of this character at all. I just wanted to include them on my bingo because it's Geno. Yeah, okay, I know, listen, haha funny, Geno isn't happening. He's irrelevant, he's only in one old ass game, blah blah blah, I know, and I don't care. He's always been my most wanted character ever since Brawl, and I have pretty much fully given up hope for him by now. But like, we just got the remake, and Sakurai himself wants it. Like, come on, it'd be perfect. Again, if I'm honest, I don't really see Geno happening, but I just really want to put him on my bingo, okay? It's my predictions list, and I get to do what I want. And what I want is Geno. Sue me, I don't care. But yeah, those are my 25 predictions for the next Super Smash Bros. Game, all put together on a fun bingo card. And don't forget, I'm keeping this by my side for any future announcements and such, and I'm doing whatever the top comments suggest as a video idea for each individual line we get. So please go down to the comments and drop some funny video ideas you'd like to see. Just, you know, keep it somewhat within reason, but don't be scared to push it a bit as well. Just try not to suggest something I'd probably do anyways. Doesn't have to be specifically Smash related, by the way, just Nintendo related in general. And while you're down there, feel free to let me know about your own predictions. I'd love to see them. And why not hit that like and subscribe button if you're scrolling down anyways. Now on to something a bit more real. Since this is my last video before we enter a whole new era of Nintendo games, this is probably going to be my last Smash related video for a good while, since we're getting a ton of big games back to back, which I of course intend to make a lot of content for. Beyond that, I want to take my channel to the next level as well, so that by the time we do get a new Smash game, we all get to go into it as a big community with a ton of fun videos. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I'm planning on changing the iconic pink PJiggles grid background. And I hate to drop this on you so suddenly, but that does mean that this will be the last video with the current background, as next video will be the debut of my new one. So please, say your goodbyes while you can, and I hope you look forward to the new one. And since this is kind of the end of an era, I want to do something special for the Patreon shoutouts this time, namely by thanking everyone that's ever been a paid supporter, regardless of tier. YouTube kinda sucks as a job nowadays, unfortunately, and without the support of my patrons, the channel would probably not be kicking the same way as it is right now. So without further ado, massive shoutouts to LurFX1, Giant Firing Cole, The Flying Fire, Quote is Cool, Right the Yoshi, The Game Didi, Lime the Chef, Sheen for the Win, Sil700, Gurk, Exobear, Alejandro Uribe, CPJ, Amphibian Milkshake, Noso, Sayalola, Scott Jonesberg, Undersea Rexy VT, Superpig Eggs, Goomba Odyssey, Casper9091, Free France, OAO Lewis, AA2, Brass Player Number 3, Charles E. Fuller, Pixel Boy, Minus, Feckin' Rat, Sander, Julia Butterfly, The Guy, Cool Carter, Marwin, Pulse Dog, and Gummy Worms. And to further show my appreciation, I'm making the behind the scenes commentary of this video available for free to everyone. So yes, even if you're not supporting me on Patreon at all, you can still go watch that video. So if you're interested, go check it out, it'll be specifically listed in the description. And in that video, I'll drop a big discount code so you can get 70% off your first month of any tier. So yeah, more of a reason to go check it out. Go go go, the code will only be available for 2 weeks or until June 14th. With that all said, thank you so much for watching and for your continued support. I hope to see you here next time for the big unveil of my new background. Bye bye.